My favorite post-Beatles album is John Lennon Plastic Ono Band. There's all this personal stuff about his mother, a lot of screaming. Listening to those songs is like being with John Lennon in a mental institution. And when Rolling Stone magazine came out with the John Lennon interview, he told about coming to West Hollywood with Yoko Ono to undergo primal scream therapy. Now, primal therapy is based on the theory that if you lie on your back inside a dark, soundproof chamber, sink into your memories and feel the feelings, shit comes up. And doing this repeatedly will pop the cork on your neuroses and drain away your reservoir of pain. I think everybody's got stuff to scream about. Me, I was a middle-class orphan. When I was 7, my mom died of cancer. When I was 13, my older brother Pete died of kidney disease, and 3 months later I found my dad dead of a heart attack on the bathroom floor. By the time I turned 14, I actually considered studying mortuary science. After I read John Lennon's interview in Rolling Stone, I went to the library and took out 2 books. I'm Okay, You're Okay, by Thomas Harris. And the book that brought John and Yoko to West Hollywood to scream, Arthur Janoff's The Primal Scream. After a couple of pages of I'm Okay, You're Okay, I thought, I'm not fucking okay. As a little boy, I had a recurrent daydream that there was a heaven where a series of workstations were built on clouds and television sets would play back incidents from your life with you being completely vindicated in the end. Sort of like Albert Brooks defending your life. And my childhood fantasy about adult life was that I would live with a really cool girl in a messy apartment, and together we would explore what our childhoods had done to us. And I set out on a quest to find the primal scream. A psychic once told me, something traumatic happened to you when you were 9 months old. According to my Aunt Collie, that's when my mother stopped breastfeeding me and weaned me. The dictionary definition of the word wean is to free from an unwholesome habit or interest. I was interested in my mother's breasts. She developed breast cancer, therefore it's my fault. But my mother did me a huge favor that I'll always be grateful for. She introduced me to the concept of seeking help. I don't know if she envisioned 4 decades of therapy and its attendant costs. But one afternoon when I came from school in 2nd grade, sitting in my living room were my mother, my older brother Pete, and our Unitarian minister, Dr. Carl Storm. My mom says, you boys know Dr. Storm as our minister from church, but he's also a psychotherapist. And every Thursday afternoon when I come home late for supper, it's because I'm with Dr. Storm. I talk about my cancer, how I worry about Daddy, and how I love you boys. And this is what you do when you're in crisis. You seek help. A month or so later, my mom died of cancer. And my dad busied himself with work, but everyone pressured him to find me and my brother a new mom. So a year later, he married Irma Jean, our new stepmother. Irma Jean had a cabin on Lake Zimmerman with a motorboat. She was a great cook. She taught us how to play golf. We partied. One night, Irma Jean came up to my bedroom to tuck me in. She was wearing a rather revealing nightgown. As she leaned over to fluff my pillow, her breasts hung over my face like moons over Saturn. So I punched one. Oh, why did you do that? I didn't know. I wasn't in therapy. Yet. When I was in 8th grade, my brother Pete died of kidney disease, and then my dad died of a heart attack. And I was stuck with my stepmother, whose breasts I admired. Her family warned her, get this boy into therapy. So they sent me to the Minneapolis Clinic of Psychiatry and Neurology. Dr. Sherman E. Nelson, PhD, wore horn-rimmed glasses, black suits, and skinny ties. The elastic had gone out on all his socks. He smoked Salem cigarettes right down to the filter. He put his chin in his hand, cigarette smoke curling up into the air. He looked like he was really listening. I liked him. This is what you do when you're in crisis. You seek help. After about a year and a half of treatment, Dr. Nelson told me, I think our work is done. You're an emotionally mature young man. The problem is your stepmother. She drinks too much and she refuses treatment. Yes! I was vindicated. I was to blame for nothing. I was done with my rotten childhood. And off I went to college. 5 times. I was a journalism major, a theater major, a film major, a general studies major, and a creative writing major. After my girlfriend Claudia and I read The Primal Scream, we built a scream box in our apartment. It looked like a particle accelerator. You crawl through a little door, you lock yourself in, you lie back on thick vinyl-covered foam and sink into your memories. For all I knew, I was just going to lie there and think. But I surprised myself by screaming and crying my heart out. I totally freaked out the neighbors. I freaked myself out with my quaking sobs and plaintive cries from my mommy. We visited the box every day for a week. It was like purposely inducing nightmares. That got depressing. So we applied for therapy at the Primal Institute, which is on North Almont Drive here in West Hollywood. They wrote back, "Thank you for your interest, but due to limited staff and demand, we are unable to treat you at this time." But we were already screaming. So I asked for a referral. They said, "No problem." Apparently, there were lots of places to scream. The primal doctrine was spreading. Therapists liked the fact that their patients were finally doing something besides talking about themselves. They were screaming and crying about themselves. So the Oakwood Beach Primal Center in Berkeley welcomed us with open arms for a $1,650 deposit. The therapy center was a green stucco house on University Avenue that sat between a discount tire center and a Thai massage parlor. The director was a middle-aged therapist named Cerise. The night we arrived, she escorted me and Claudia to separate bedrooms and instructed us to keep a journal, and that Claudia and I were to have no contact with each other for 3 weeks. Cerise was to be my therapist. My girlfriend would be in treatment with Cerise's much younger boyfriend, Herb. But after only a week of therapy, Cerise turned me over to Herb and disappeared. Listening to me must have been depressing for her. In my sessions with Herb, he sat quietly in the darkened therapy room and said things to me like, "Tell your father to pull his cock out of your ass." I said, "I don't think that's exactly my issue." Soon my girlfriend Claudia informed me that she was going into training with Herb to become a therapist. That should have set off alarms. With her previous therapist, Claudia had had a 4-year sexual relationship, which began when she was in 9th grade. I asked her once, "Do you consider that child abuse?" She said, "No, I liked it." She would hand her mother's check for the session to her therapist, and they would spend the 50-minute hour having sex. I got up the courage to ask Claudia if there's anything going on between her and our therapist, Herb. She was non-committal. But one morning in our messy apartment, we woke up, made love, and I shit the bed. My bowels sensed something that I didn't. I removed the offending material from the bed. We cooked French toast for breakfast, and then Claudia broke down and told me she was leaving me for Herb. I loved Claudia. We'd been through a lot together. But through my veil of tears, I said, "I take you at your word. You say you're in love with Herb, I believe you. I'm not going to run after you." And I didn't. I moved to West Hollywood and signed up for Primal Scream therapy. Finally, I would be at the famous Primal Institute, where John and Yoko, James Earl Jones, and the lead singer of Tears for Fears all came to feel their feelings. On group therapy nights, around 75 primal patients lay scattered throughout various rooms, cradling their pillows. The walls were covered with large soundproof panels, and it was dark. You could hear the muttering of therapists, and from the patients, some muted crying and the occasional tooth-rattling scream. There were a lot of Northern Europeans who came for primal therapy, particularly Germans. One night in group, a German said, "I remember staring at my mother, who seemed to hate me so much, und ich hab gesagt, Mutti, Mutti, warum hast du gehabt?" And he began to cry. Lying on the the floor next to the German was a guy from Redondo who said, "Dude, it's Donald Duck having a primal." Everybody cracks up, and the German jumps to his feet. "Kiss my ass, you fucking asshole, man!" And the therapists leap in and hurl him to the floor. It was just another night of heavy emotional weather at the Primal Institute. A few weeks later, John Lennon's therapist, the author of the Primal Scream himself, Arthur Janoff, approached me. "You seem to be very much into your feelings. I'd like to offer you a therapy session with my wife, Vivian, if you'll agree to be videotaped for 2 on the Town for Channel 2. I thought, I'd be on TV. So they bring in the cameras, I scream and cry, and when my episode airs, I throw a viewing party. And my Aunt Collie calls. "Honey, I'm watching you on TV. This is very upsetting." I was screaming and crying about her sister dying of breast cancer. So I screamed and cried for a few more months, did sessions with John and Yoko's therapist, spotted the occasional celeb. It was Hollywood, everybody did therapy. I met the woman who would become my wife. We did therapy. My father-in-law ran into the comedian Rodney Dangerfield at a urinal in Beverly Hills, and Rodney talked about his therapy. "I'll tell you, my mother was so fucked up, I didn't get no respect at all." Very funny. Happily, I survived. I got married and raised a family. My wife of 27 years is here tonight. I don't scream so much anymore, but when I do, I definitely remember how. And the truth is, reliving all those memories about funerals and loss and abysmal loneliness and precious memories about my mother and my father and my brother allowed me to grieve and take stock and finally move on with my life. There's not much left for me to scream about, but if I look long enough, I'm sure I'll find something.